Welcome to Ask AI, the podcast that brings you insightful interviews and news from the world of Canadian artificial intelligence. This episode is sponsored by Microsoft Canada. Go to microsoft.com/AI and check out their free AI business school to start building intelligence into your solutions today. We're also sponsored by Cinchi, the global leader in data fabric technology. Visit Cinchi.com to learn how to eliminate integration and turbocharge your AI transformation.
So Yves, I'd love to hear more about yourself, your background, and about Ferme.
First, I was actually born on a farm. So I grew up on a farm near Hudson,
Okay,
west of Montreal, near Vaudreuil,
okay,
where you actually have the first commercial farm that we've deployed. Is actually on the farm where I was born, but my dad sold it like 35 years ago when I graduated from electrical engineering from Polytechnical School.
okay. Nice. Quebec roots.
Yeah, quite a lot, but I did spend a lot of time in Europe. I lived in Europe for several years, but did technology for like 30 years or something in embedded software, a bunch of things related to OEMs and manufacturers of equipment and whatnot, which we're using today with the Ferme d'Hiver project.
Great. And what was your path towards founding Ferme, and when did this all start?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. First, you got to understand we started before the pandemic, so it's nothing to do with that.
Mhm.
The reality is actually was accelerated by it, sure, but essentially we realized that there was enough technology, the maturity of the lighting, for example,
Mhm.
the maturity of the market itself. That everybody was concerned about importing all the fruits and vegetables that we are consuming during the wintertime.
Mhm.
And when we start, putting together some ideas and whatnot, we present it to investors, so Investissement Québec, to show, if we were to do this, what is, our interest in funding such a thing. And it turned out that they had a strong interest in looking into it. We
Mhm.
went and also went after the supply chain, looking at the Sobeys and Loblaws and all these guys to say, if we were to put together farms, what would be your interest into getting involved into this? And essentially, the involvement is signing long-term contracts for a large amount of produce. So
Mhm.
that's what we did. So we signed contracts. We went to see investors, got the investors on board, and then the rest is engineering things. We need to put it together and make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And touching base on the name Ferme, or in English, Winter Farm, what are some of the challenges that we face here in Quebec, but
Well,
also other places in Canada with winter farms?
so there are obvious things. First, we do have an existing production supply chain. The growers, they do exist. So we are
Yeah.
only able to grow and produce for like 4 or 5 months of the year. So the base that we had as a concern was, how can we leverage existing infrastructure, existing knowledge, existing talents that we have. And also, there's a bunch of programs that exist for funding farms. So Farm
Hmm.
Credit Canada, for example, or the equivalent in Quebec and everything, it exists. There's a bunch
Hmm.
of programs to help also research and help on innovations. So we wanted to
Hmm.
make sure that, the challenges is that we were not looking at a science fair project, but
Hmm.
coming up with something that real farmers can use and just hide, the technology behind the vertical farming or behind the winter production of food. So from a grower perspective, it's like the same base fundamentals that he's very accustomed with, and being able to use the agronomist that they're
Hmm.
using during the summer production or the greenhouse production. It was not to reinvent the agronomic part.
Hmm.
And so we have in our team, a doctor in plant physiology and biology that pretty much tell us what the system has to do. Because essentially the entire technology is at the service of a plant, right?
Sure.
It's not a technology that says, the plant will figure out how to use the technology.
Right.
the
Yeah.
so we are putting a lot of monitoring, sensors into the system. So the challenges was more to find out exactly what are the conditions, what are the climate that that a plant like a strawberry, for example, in our current farm
Yeah.
requires. And that is why for the beginning of the company, we had more agronomists working with us and plant physiologists working with us because we needed to understand what the engineering has to deliver. And it turned out that, if you look at all the, marketing around vertical farming, around indoor production, turned out to be more marketing spiel than reality from,
Right.
when you start doing mass production. Because again, you realize that in Canada, as an example, in Canada, we're importing like 130,000 tons of strawberries during the winter season. So it's not doing, a backyard container of strawberries. It's to do warehouses of indoor production, if you want to do that.
Absolutely.
And this is where the technology is at the service of a plant, but we soon realize that we are pretty much replacing Mother Nature. So replacing Mother Nature is very complex.
Perfect. Merci, Yves. And I'd love to know what's new at the Fermes du Vibe these days.
Well, we deployed the first industrial farm last Christmas, pretty much. So what's new is that we are building more farms, and we have maintained enough interest into our project to raise funding for it. So we will be announcing very soon more funding. But
Great.
essentially, we also secured funding for the refining the tech to AI. And that's going to take a few years, but it's still very interesting to see the level of interest we were able to raise in the community for the AI.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's congratulations on that funding. And I'd love to know what type of AI is involved in this technology.
Like I said, we have to replace Mother Nature. In Mother Nature, if you do, separate it in components, essentially you have the sun, you have the wind, you have the rain, and you have to mix that in order for the plant to be satisfied. The light brings the energy to the plant. The water brings the nutrients. The wind brings the condition by which the plant is happy and is evaporating all the time and consuming the nutrients. And the lights gives the energy for that to happen, and the CO2. Everything. We're recreating the environment. So the first element was to deliver the right amount of energy to the plant. The second one was to give the right climate. So, from the temperature, the humidity, and the wind speed into it. And at the end of the day, this did not exist. There's no equivalent, according to all the people that we're working with. And let me tell you that we're working with people in the States, in Europe, and in Canada, of course, and a lot of universities. And to our knowledge, and to the knowledge of people that we're working with, we are the largest indoor strawberry production in the world. So there's no existing path. There's no blueprint that we can use to say, okay, these guys did it like that, so we're going to start from there and pretty much improve on it. What we did is we looked at how our strawberry grown inside greenhouses and extrapolate how we can verticalize it. And, so take the example of the Vaudreuil site. Essentially, we are producing 160 kilos per square meters, while the greenhouse would do 12.
So you mentioned vertical farming. Could you let us know what that is and how AI is involved in that?
So essentially, we are every farm are growing vegetables using the sun. So when you have a field or a greenhouse, you have rows of, let's say, strawberries, that needs to see the sun from the top. When you're vertical, then you have the sun coming from the side, and you have the strawberries stacked on top of each other, with, let's say, a foot in between all the rows. So you're able to multiply the density of your production vertically as much as you want, as much as it's physically reasonable.
Right.
In Vaudreuil, we have 14 rows on top of each other, while our greenhouse would only have one. We have 14.
And how does AI get involved in these vertical farming components?
I will explain all of that. So, as an example, you have to recreate all the components. So you have lights, you have climate conditions, you have watering. So let's say that those are the three main components.
Yeah.
Each of those are controlled through computers. Each of those are controlled through sensors and probes and whatnot. So all of this, they're all connected separately to different systems. So indoor production, we can observe all of this, report back to a data system, gathering all the data, all the data on the yield, on the health of the plant, and make correlations between the systems, the adjustment and the monitoring of all those systems, and the monitoring of all the plants, and make correlations in between the two. So the funding that we receive essentially is to build what we call digital twins.
Okay.
So in the AI world, we are building the environmental digital twins. So representing, simulating all the lights, watering, and climate conditions. And we are doing a digital twin of the plants and making, simulation between the two worlds, and making sure that we are always understanding if we're changing the light intensity, for example, the reaction on the photosynthesis of the plant will be X, and making sure that we are able to prove that the understanding of the machine is actually right, is actually exactly on the reaction of the real plant. So all the sensors and all the monitoring that we're doing is to build the knowledge and have a machine doing machine learning based on the reality.
So it sounds that if you have a digital twin, you can probably run experiments a lot faster and more efficiently than you could in reality. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. I mean, it's marvelous to have this kind of environment where you can replicate in a digital world, a virtual world, something that would take months to pretty much experiment.
Wonderful. And can you let me know, why does this matter? How does this impact Quebec and all of Canada?
So there are two major impacts that we can talk about. Certainly the reduction of gas effect through the production using fossil fuel. So by essentially using lights, we're able to totally remove the need for fossil fuel. So not only is it purely hydroelectricity in Quebec, but also we are extracting all the heat from the lighting system to heat up the greenhouse next to us. So we're also reducing by 90% the need for the greenhouses for any fuel.
Wow,
so we are
great.
replacing their heating system. So we're reducing the need for or the generation of greenhouse gas effect as a global scale on one hand. The other element is reducing, our imports of foods we're eating during the off season, right? So right now we're just aiming at replacing 10% of strawberry imports. That's still 13 million kilos. So it's a lot of kilos.
Absolutely. Brittany, could you let us know who's involved in this grant, and feel free to shout out any investors that you like to mention.
Well, for the AI portion, we have essentially two research here. One with the TS here in Montreal, which is more on the engineering part. So doing all the climate control modeling system. And also with the Montreal University for all the digital twin. So we have a postdoc We also have a master's degree student through a METAX. Also,
Nice.
those projects are supported by INSERC
Okay.
as well. So yeah, we are putting together a very decent, group of researchers for this,
Mhm.
as well as internal people that are working on
Wonderful.
this. I think it's also important to know that the connection between the industry and university is something that was at the art of Film Diva since the beginning. We've
Mhm.
been supporting METAX students for the past 2 years, trying
Wonderful.
to support the creation of knowledge around vertical farming, creation knowledge around indoor production, and you know, energy efficiency is very critical, and our cost of energy is quite significant. So any
Mhm.
dollars we spend on energy, we want to make sure that we're using wisely, able to as much as possible. Hence why the AI is so critical, because we're always
Yep.
monitoring the systems energy usage.
Great. And could you talk a bit more about the body that provided the grant? So the Sustainable Development Technology in Canada.
Yeah, so the federal government has a strong interest in supporting, the let's say sustainable economy. It's not about
Mhm.
an R&D project. It's about how do we transform Canada's sustainability over the years, right? So when we're presented
Yeah.
this, essentially they were fine with the farm, but they wanted to see how this could be scalable. How can we
Mhm.
scale so Canada become more efficient? And
Yeah.
this is why, by introducing the AI component into the project, they said, "Oh, we're all in." And
Nice.
we're going to
That's
announce
great.
we're going to announce another grant that we received that is tied to SDGs, essentially related to greenhouse gas effect, and the fact that we were helping Canada to achieve their net zero objectives, which is
Terrific.
critical because it's very important.
So that's great to hear. That kind of feeds into what's happening next at Film Divaya. What else is happening? And could you talk about a bit future projects or future work that's coming ahead?
Yeah, so we are today deploying the second phase of the Baudreuil farm, which will
Nice.
bring in about 200 tons a year of production. We
Okay.
are starting the construction of another farm that will bring it to about 1,000 ton a year of production. So multiplied by 5, which we're doing in Baudreuil. And we are in the midst of negotiating another space to pretty much quadruple that, because not only do we have contracts for Quebec and Ontario and Canada in general, but also we have contracts to produce in New England. So we are
Great.
building farms near the border to pretty much
Nice.
feed the entire North America.
Wonderful. And if people wanted to learn more about Film Divide or perhaps about how to apply as a MindTech student or any type of um, recruiting that you might have going on, how could they go about doing that?
Yeah, they can reach us. It's very easy through the website, right? And we have Marie-Josée Monti, who actually handles all our research and academic relationship with universities. And then we're certainly looking into that, because it's very critical for us to find good talents and have people jumping on board of this cultural revolution we're putting together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on this Ask AI Team Check-in.
My pleasure.
This has been a production of Ask AI, a nonprofit dedicated to advancing awareness and understanding of Canada's world-class artificial intelligence sector. Your host was Carolyn Pelletier, series producer was Chris McClellan, and the series editor was James Fajardo. We'd like to thank our series sponsors Microsoft Canada, producers of the free AI Business School, and Cinchi, the dataware platform that makes integration obsolete. We'd love to hear about your latest research, product launches, or organizational news. To request a team check-in, visit askai.org.